Hello, I have another build showcase for you guys, and this one is going to be a Righteous Fire Flame Wall Juggernaut. I use this build to do all of the content in the game. I did the League mechanic very easily. Um, I did a lot of delving with it. I did bossing, mapping with it. So I literally can do everything in the game with ease. Um, so first I'll go over the tree for you guys. So the important keystones that you want to have are Elemental Overload, that gives you an insane damage boost when you crit. Elemental Equilibrium, that reduces the resistances when you deal a certain elemental damage type. So in this case we have Stormbrand that deals lightning damage and reduces the fire resist of our enemies. Also cold resist, but we don't really care about that. And the other keystone we want is Call to Arms, because we have two war cries, Infernal Cry and Enduring Cry. Infernal Cry we use to clear huge packs of enemies, and Enduring Cry is nice for extra life regen during the fight or for generating endurance charges at the beginning of a boss fight. Um, Aside from that, for the rest of the tree, it's fairly simple. You just want literally every single life cluster that there is in this side of the tree. So we just got life, 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 and life. Also, you want the 3 endurance charges that you get from the tree and here. You want as many jewel sockets as possible because those ones are very important because that's how you get most of your resistances and chaos resistance. So elemental resistance and chaos resistance are mainly going to be stacked on these jewels, and you also can have life on them. Um, so yeah, just life, endurance charges, jewel sockets, pretty simple. I guess I got a little bit of damage here since I only have one cluster jewel setup. There is a Initially I had a variant where I had a second cluster jewel setup here, but going pathing over here meant that I had to sacrifice this bottom part of the tree, and I would lose a lot of life. I would lose one extra endurance charge, I would lose one jewel socket, and that meant that I would lose a lot of life regen and a lot of life and a lot of resistances and some physical damage reduction since I lose an endurance charge. I would lose a lot of defensive stats. Okay, but if you want more damage, that's definitely the way to go. You could have another exact cluster jewel setup like this one. So you could have a large cluster jewel which has Burning Bright and Widespread Destruction. Burning Bright is a must-have notable on every cluster you have because it literally gives you the most damage for our skills, Righteous Fire and Flame Wall. There is a large cluster jewel that gives you 3 notables, but I only got one that gives you 2 because I didn't have enough currency for another one. Then for the medium cluster jewels, you have uh, Burning Bright and Exposure Therapy. Burning Bright, once again, best notable you can get, and Exposure Therapy is the second best notable for damage over time multiplier you can get for our 2 skills. And then so both of these medium cluster jewels are identical, and then in those medium cluster jewels you have a small cluster jewel that gives you Molten One's Mark, which increases our max fire resistance and increases our life regen. So like I said, if you want to get more damage, you can always get rid of this bottom part of the tree here, and then path here, and then get an exact same setup as this one, and then sacrifice some more life, sacrifice these jewel sockets here. Anyways, you're gonna get 2 jewel sockets in the small jewel sockets because you don't need to add the Molten One's Mark. Just with these 2 and with the gear that I have, you already reach 90% max fire res. But it's all up to you. If you want, you can play this variant, which is much more tankier and much more dummy proof, as I like to say, since you can make a lot more mistakes and not be punished for it. Um, or you can just get more damage and I guess shorten the boss fights, because that's all it does. It doesn't really change much for clearing. You clear at the same rate, but for bossing it definitely makes the fights much shorter. Now for the gem links. So in our helmet, which is our 6 link, since our um, helmet has a socketed burning damage and has socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage, which counts as a 6 link, I guess. So we have the Flame Wall, Awaken Elemental Focus support, Efficacy support, and Empower support. Um, so I went for pure damage. I mean, you could have went for Conk Effect instead of Efficacy support, but I just like the area of effect, so I didn't want to sacrifice too much of it. I went for Empower support here because Flame Wall and Righteous Fire, they get a lot of base damage increase per level, so scaling levels on these skills are very, very good. I saw some people went for Inspiration, but the thing is we don't really have a skill that gets Inspiration charges quickly, so it's kind of wasted for us. We don't have Scorching Ray, which you just channel and then stack 5 Inspiration charges really quickly. We have Flame Wall, which we just apply uh, 3 times and then we just run around with Shield Charge. I guess you could put Inspiration Charge on your Shield Charge, but you would have to sacrifice some Jewel Sockets, which we don't really have that much of. It's very restricted, so I opted just for these 4 gems. And then in the other 4 link for Righteous Fire, we have Righteous Fire itself, Awaken Elemental Focus again, Efficacy support once again, and Awaken Burning Damage support, since um, we don't have burning damage as a modifier on this item. And the cool thing about these is that, let's say you're bossing, you can leave Flame Wall in here and just boss with it, because Flame Wall has a much better uptime than Righteous Fire. But if you want to do maps faster, you just swap the Righteous Fire and then you can do like the ultimatum with the 6 link, and it'll be much quicker than having a Flame Wall 6 linked. Flame Wall is much better, like I said, for bossing, since um, a lot of boss fights, you are dodging a lot of their attacks and you are trying to play around their mechanics, so you don't necessarily always stay close to the boss. But if you just put Flame Wall under them and then they hit it once and then walk away from it, they're gonna take a lot of damage. So yeah, Flame Wall is definitely much better for bossing because it has much higher uptime. For the other gem links, so in the gauntlets we have the aura setup. So we have Purity, Fire, Vitality, and Malevolence. So Purity Fire, you want to raise your maximum fire res so that Righteous Fire doesn't deal as much damage to you. So for those of you who don't know, Righteous Fire deals 90% of your max life per second as fire damage. So the higher your maximum fire res is, the easier it is to sustain the skill. Vitality, once again, it's life regen to help us sustain Righteous Fire. And then Malevolence is just more damage over time, which is good for both Flame Wall and Righteous Fire. Then in the Scepter, we have the 2 War Cries, so Infernal Cry, which makes enemies explode upon death, and it deals their maximum life as damage, which is just very nice. It's basically an explodey mod, but as a skill. And then Enduring Cry, like I said, to regen life when you take a really big hit, and to generate endurance charges at the beginning of a boss fight. And then we have Flame Dash, since sometimes your shield charge bugs and you get stuck between enemies. And it's also nice to have because there are some attacks you can't really dash through, you can't charge through. You want to like phase through them, you want to teleport away from them, because if you charge through them you might take a unnecessary amount of damage. So Flame Dash is always nice to have. Also, sometimes there are gaps that you can't get across with Shield Charge, so Flame Dash is nice. And then the last 3 gems, we have Shield Charge and Fortify setup. So in a ultimatum, you technically have permanent fortify with this because you just shield charge through enemies in a circle over and over, and you pop your infernal cry. Um, you pop your infernal cry instantly, so you never stop. You're basically just running around, and then the enemies that are chasing you are burning down. Sometimes you pop your stormer brand and your flame wall just to get some extra damage, but just running around in a circle with righteous fire is enough to do the ultimatums. So that's it for the gems. Now for the gear, I mean, you can already see it. It's pretty generic. Most righteous fire builds have this. So for the chest plate, we have the glorious plate, Calm's Heart, which gives you 500 to max life, which is pretty self-explanatory. You want as much life as possible since righteous fire deals damage based on your maximum life. It also has base scaling off of its levels, but it also has scaling off of your HP. So that's very nice, and that's why you want as much HP as possible. I also got it corrupted with +1 to all maximum resistances because this +1 is needed for you to reach 90% max fire res. For the helmet, so this is our 6th link, like I said. You have burning damage, more elemental damage. Both of these are socketed. You craft this by using an essence of horror and hoping that you get burning damage along with the more elemental damage, which is guaranteed. If you get lucky enough, you can get concentrated effect. You have to do this on a elder base to get the mods. I don't remember which item level it is, but it has to be elder. Ideally, what you would want as well is have an open suffix, and instead of the armor you would like to have tier 1 life, and then in the open suffix you would craft multi-mod, and then for the two prefixes you would want to have +1 to level of AoE skills, which is another level for your flame wall or righteous fire depending on which one you have socketed in, which is once again more damage and more area of effect. And the second multi-mod you would want to have is fizz damage taken as fire. So since you have 90% fire max res, fizz damage taken as fire is an incredible damage reduction. It's very, very, very nice to have. In the boot slot, I got these synthesized boots, which give +1 to maximum endurance charges. Then it's pretty generic. You want life, I guess. Yeah, I got tier 1 life, and then tier 1 hybrid life, and then tier 1 life. And then lightning res on it, which is a pretty low lightning res, tier 5. And then I crafted move speed and a dual resistance mod for cold and chaos. There's another way for you to get +1 maximum endurance charges on this. You could get warlord influence boots and then hope to get +1 to maximum endurance charges along with all of these other resistances, but crafting it is much harder. But it's all up to you. Yeah, it's a pretty annoying boot setup to craft. I went for the synthesized variant because it's much easier. In the gauntlets, these ones I bought, very generic, triple res, life, armor, nothing special. Belt, this one I crafted myself. I got the leather belt, item level 85. I got it for 5C, then chaos spammed it and got the tier 1 increased maximum life, and then tier 2 max life, along with tier 3 cold res, which is very nice, and an open suffix to add more resistances. The ideal belt you would want to have, so instead of increased stun and block recovery, obviously you would want another resistance. But if you really want to min-max this build, instead of maximum energy shield, you would want increased life recovery rate, which is incredible. It just boosts your life regen up by so much. It's very nice. I tried to get it. I tried to exalt slam it, but instead I got energy shield. But anyways, even just this belt is very nice because it gives you an incredible amount of health. Then for the shield, must have shield, best in slot for this build. +4 to all maximum resistances is incredible. It makes you tanky to elemental resistances, to elemental attacks, I mean, and to chaos attacks, and it also increases your max fire res, so sustaining righteous fire is much easier, and the increased chance the block spell damage, very nice. Um, then for the scepter, this one is pretty garbage, to be honest. Um, I just got a scepter that had +1 to level of all fire spell skill gems. I got a base that had this mod, then I annulled everything off, and then I multi-modded 20% to fire damage over time multiplier and the dex because I needed dex. It was I didn't want to get it on the tree. I wanted to get life on the tree instead, so I wasted one mod on this for dex. And then I exalted slam the two other garbage mods, which kind of sucks. But anyways, the reason you want to have +1 to level of all fire spell skill gems is, well, this +1 coupled with the other +1 from your amulet, which I'm going to show you later, is going to give your level 21 is going to get your level 21 purity of fire up to level 23. And purity of fire gets one extra additional maximum fire res when it's level 23. And the cool thing about the +1 is that it not only affects your purity of fire, but it also affects your flame wall and your righteous fire. So this +1 to level of all fire spell skill gems increases your offensive stats and your defensive stats. So it's a must-have. It's just too good to not have. Then in the amulet, I have this marble amulet that is hunter and warlord influenced, and it has, so I got the warlord influence +1 to level all fire skill gems. Once again, just way too good to have. And from the hunter amulet, I got malevolence has reduced reservation. If you don't have this reduced reservation, you can't fit in all three auras with enlightened level 4. And then I used an awakener orb, combined the two, and I got this as the amulet. I got lucky and got items and gems that have reduced attribute requirements. That made it a lot more easier for me to get attributes to get attribute requirements for my gear, and then I crafted life on it. This is a pretty expensive amulet to make, but it is very much worth it. It fits in your aura setup, and it gives you that extra level for your purity of fire to get that extra maximum fire res. And then for the rings, well, Calm's Way, I got only one of them because I wanted to get a good amount of life regen. I didn't get a second one. Two reasons. It doesn't give that much life, and I needed some more attributes, and I also needed flammability on hit. So like I said, we don't have that many gems, and we were very restricted with our gem setup. So I needed to add curse somewhere. I didn't want to add hex touch and then flammability. It's 2 gems that are used, and then I can't fit in the rest of my gems. So I just opted for flammability on a hit ring, which is why I don't have a second Calm's Way. And I got pretty lucky. I got intelligence, tier 2 life, and flammability on hit, and also managed to craft increased damage. I still have an open prefix, which I could try to slam something, but I don't think I'll get anything decent since it's a warlord base and there are so many mods for warlord. I might end up getting something useless like an attack mod or something. So yeah, that's it for the gear. So if you follow all of the setup that I have, so the +1 to this level, +1 here to all levels, and the level 21 pure to fire, +1 to all maximum res here, +4 to maximum res here, and then +2 to max res here, +2 to max res here, and then I think that's it. You should get 90% maximum fire res, which is the highest fire resistance you can get, and you'll get 80% in the other resistances. Chaos res I only have 49, but when you get 9 endurance charges, it goes beyond 80%, so you'll reach the max for that as well. Is there anything? Ah, yes, the jewels. I didn't show you the jewels. So every jewel is very basic. You just want life, chaos res. I guess I got damage over time on this one. Um, life, chaos res, resistances, life, chaos res, life, chaos res, corrupted blood immunity, life, chaos res, resistances, and then this Watcher's Eye is very, very, very nice. So I got this for fairly cheap. I got it for 50C. I got increased recovery rate of life when affected by malevolence, which is incredible. It boosts our life regen by a lot. And then the other nice mod we had is 10% of physical damage from hits taken as fire. So you have 90% uh, max fire res. So converting damage taken as fire is incredible. It's a must. It's a must. Which is why I told you if you can try to craft it on your helmet as well. Um, and I also got unaffected by burning ground while affected by purity fire, which I guess is a nice extra, but not very required. Um, if you want a mirror tier Watcher's Eye, I don't know how you're gonna get it, but instead of having unaffected by burning ground while affected by purity of fire, you would like to have increased life recovery rate when affected by vitality, but it's practically impossible for you to get all three of those mods at the same time. I think I saw one, but it was like a bunch of mirrors, so I don't plan on getting it anytime soon. What else? Oh yes, for enchants, I got Flame Wall instead of Righteous Fire deals 40% increased damage because Flame Wall, like I said, has higher uptime for bosses. So I opted for increasing my single target DPS, which is what I need most. Then for the boots, this one is a very nice enchant. 120% increased critical strike chance if you haven't crit recently. This is good because you want your Stormbrand to crit as much as possible to have your elemental overload up as long as possible. And that's what this enchant helps you do. And then for gauntlets, gauntlets enchants are irrelevant. I got a skill that deals lightning damage, I think. I mean, it's thunder, so it's probably lightning damage. You don't want to get anything that deals fire damage, because if not, it's going... Since these apply, these hit, so this counts as a hit for elemental equilibrium, you don't want fire skills, because if not, it's going to increase the fire resistance of the enemies, which is definitely not what you want. Then for flasks, very simple. Forbidden Taste, 2 of them. It recovers your whole health pool, and the chaos damage per second is, you don't feel it at all. Then you have a shock immunity flask and a corrupted blood, well, a bleed immunity flask, since you're immune to corrupted blood, but you still are vulnerable to bleeding. Um, and there are some very strong bleeds out there sometimes, especially when you do Maven challenges. Sometimes bleeding is just ridiculous, but you also have a lot of life regen, so you shouldn't be too worried about it. And you want it to be a Ruby Flask because Ruby Flask makes it so you take less fire damage, which includes the righteous fire damage you take. So uh, using the Ruby Flask technically increases your life regen. And then I got another Curse Flask. I just got another Quicksilver Flask because I'm lazy and I only like to click 2 flasks at a time, but if you want, you could change it to a flask that increases your armor um, instead of having another Quicksilver Flask. Oh, and finally for the Pantheon are overpowered. You have to get these. You have to get the proper ones. So I got the Soul of Solaris, but the most important one is the Erythrophagia. So you take no extra damage from critical strikes if you have taken a critical strike recently. This is a must-have, especially if you want to farm Awakener. So Awakener has this attack where you have meteors that strike down, and if one crits, all of them crit. And if you get hit by all of them, you will die instantly. But if you have Erythrophagia, it technically makes you immune to critical strikes because um, very rarely you will take one hit, one critical strike hit that deals a lot of damage. Usually, most critical strike attacks that I've seen, they have a series of hits. Especially when you do mapping, if there's a lot of minions that have increased crit strike chance and increased crit strike multi, which is one of the mods from the maps, you will take a lot of hits. But if you have this Pantheon, you will mitigate all of that extra crit damage, which is very nice to have. 8% reduced elemental damage taken if you haven't been hit recently. Once again, very nice for bossing since you're running around most of the time. Additional physical damage reduction against a single enemy, so once again for bossing. And then for the small pantheons, I have Soul of Grukdul, which is additional physical damage reduction uh, for each hit you take, and you reduce attack speed when enemies hit you. This is nice for ultimatum. And when you're doing more chaos heavy maps, you can get Soul of Shikari, which reduces the chaos damage taken. And this also reduces, if you get the upgraded variant, this reduces the amount of poisons you have on you, which is nice for Al Hizmin, one of the conquerors. Is there anything else? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So when you play this build, all you do, put a flame wall, put a storm brand, and then just run around with your righteous fire up, and that's it. There's nothing very special, nothing very complex about this build. Wow, this has been a very long video. Well, that's because I wanted to inform you about this build as much as possible. I hope I've said everything and that you won't have too many questions at the end of this video. If you liked it, well, please leave a like. If you didn't like the build, tell me why. But this build is capable of doing anything. But like I said, bossing is going to be slow, but it allows for a lot of mistakes. Anyways, if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And I hope I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.